Good evening and welcome to the news roundup for Tuesday, February 21. I am Abigail Smythe. Among the stories in this evening's newscast, the UK-based Privy Council refuses application to introduce fresh evidence in Vibes cartel case. Women charged in multi-million-dollar fraud at Sagicor now under stricter bail conditions. Father and son found murdered in St. Catherine. Local government elections postponed for a third time. In business, Jamaica's economic growth back to pre-pandemic levels. In the region, Canada's Prime Minister to donate millions to CARICOM. Further overseas, another earthquake hits parts of Turkey and Syria. And in sports, Reggae Boys to be back in action next month.
Teach them! Always make sure the message reach them!
Now for the news in detail. News emerged Monday morning that Jamaica's final appellate court, the UK-based Judicial Committee of the Privy Council, had refused the dancehall star Vibes Cartel's request to appeal the decision of the local Court of Appeal. However, the Office of the Director for Public Prosecutions, DPP, has sought to clarify that Cartel's main appeal is still live and relevant. The Office of the DPP says the appeal is not at an end and that the refused application relates to specific grounds. The UK-based Privy Council refused the application brought by lawyers to introduce fresh evidence in their appeal against their conviction. The attorneys for Vibes Cartel, whose given name is Adija Palmer, had lobbied the Privy Council to allow their cyber experts to give evidence about what they found in relation to a mobile phone at the heart of the DJ's appeal. The Privy Council made its decision on the application on February 15. In its ruling, the Privy Council says it has refused the defendants' permission to appeal after it considered written submissions from the appellants and the respondents. It has also refused permission to appeal the additional grounds advanced on behalf of Vibes Cartel. It further refused the application for an extension of time and application to rely on fresh evidence. The Privy Council notes that the grounds do not support the submission that a serious miscarriage of justice had occurred in the case. In the meantime, the DPP says the primary appeal, where Palmer and his co-convicts are seeking to overturn their murder conviction, is still alive. One of Cartel's lawyers, Isat Buchanan, had said there is proof that the mobile phone, which formed a crucial part of the prosecution's case, was tampered with while in the custody of the police. He said he was looking forward to arguing the appeal. The dancehall star was arrested and slapped with multiple charges in 2011, including murder. In 2014, he was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Clive Lizard Williams. He will not be eligible for parole until he serves 35 years of his sentence. His co-accused, fellow dancehall entertainer Sean Storm, as well as Kyra Jones, also received life sentences. They will be eligible for parole after serving 25 years of their life sentences. Andre St. John will be eligible for parole after serving 15 years of his life sentence. The four women charged in connection with a multi-million-dollar fraud racket uncovered at Sagicor Bank last year had their bail extended when they appeared in the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court on Tuesday. Their bail was extended after the court was told the case file is incomplete. Stricter bail conditions were also imposed for Alicia Moulton White and her three co-accused, who were all slapped with multiple fraud charges, including larceny of a servant and conspiracy to defraud. Moulton White, her sister Trisha Moulton, Tishan Samuels, and Malika MacLeod were ordered by Senior Parish Judge Lorian Cole Montague to report to the nearest police station on Tuesdays and Thursdays between the hours of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. They were also ordered to surrender all travel documents, and a stop order was placed at all ports. A fingerprint order was also made for the women. The women are accused of conspiring and defrauding the U.S. foreign currency accounts of about 6 Sagicor customers. Investigators say more than $65 million was defrauded from customers' accounts in the alleged scam. One account was reportedly defrauded of $40 million. All four were ordered to return to court on April 27. The main suspect in last week's killing of a policeman in York District Seaforth, St. Thomas, was shot dead in a confrontation with police police Monday evening. He has been identified as 24-year-old Dwayne Logan, otherwise called Luty, of Navarre Lane in the parish. According to police reports, about 7 p.m., Logan engaged the police in a shootout near the Morant Bay roundabout when he was shot. The police report that a Glock pistol was seized following the incident. Logan was implicated in the January 17 killing of Dean Griffiths, a manager on the Surge Island farm. It is understood that the pistol recovered is that of the farm manager. Logan was also a person of interest in the fatal shooting of District Constable Mark Anthony Forsyth, who was assigned to the Trinity Vale police station. The police say he was also the suspect in multiple shootings and murders in Seaforth. A father and his son were found murdered in St. Catherine on Monday. The bodies of 58-year-old Michael Slew Sr. and his son Michael Slew Jr. were found with what appear to be bullet wounds in a cane field in Luidesville Monday evening. Mr. Slew, who was a truck driver, and his son went missing on Sunday. Investigators are probing claims that the men were killed as part of an ongoing land dispute. The National Water Commission, NWC, is warning that it may be forced to implement more water restrictions in the corporate area and St. Catherine due to worsening drought conditions affecting the island. The NWC implemented water restrictions last week in response to decreasing levels in the Hermitage Dam and the Mona Reservoir over the last few weeks. The water levels in several rivers are also on the decline. Acting Corporate Public Relations Manager at the NWC, Delano Williams, says the drop in water levels at the two main corporate area facilities is of major concern. The Hermitage Dam is now at 54% of capacity, while the Mona Reservoir is just slightly higher than 70%. Mr. Williams says NWC customers should begin storing water for their convenience as more conservation measures are put in place. He says water restrictions will be implemented across the entire corporate area. Some areas will receive water from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., some areas from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., and some areas 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Mr. Williams also notes that restrictions have already been implemented in rural Jamaica due to the effect of the drought on the NWC systems. In the meantime, a minister with responsibility for water, Matthew Samuda, has announced that there will be a $50 million allocation to truck water to areas worst affected by the drought. The NWC says trucking arrangements will be implemented to serve customers who cannot be served through the piped network. The NWC is imploring customers to play their part to reduce the impact of the drought by using conservation methods. The Jamaica Teachers Association, JTA, says some retired educators are struggling to make ends meet as they have to wait for a protracted period before receiving their pension payments. JTA President LaSonia Harrison says some retired teachers have left the classroom over 18 months ago and have not started receiving their pension payments. Ms. Harrison says some retirees have depleted their savings to offset their monthly expenses while they await the start of pension payments. She adds that others without savings have resorted to begging friends and relatives to buy food, medication, and pay bills. She notes that many could not afford to own a home and are still struggling with rent. Others who may have only been able to afford a home later in life are still paying their mortgages, and some also have car payments or are helping their children through tertiary education. Ms. Harrison points out that the delay in processing pension payments is sometimes as a result of all relevant documents not being gathered and submitted, especially if the teacher did not work at just one school throughout their career. She is urging teachers to avoid this pitfall by keeping track of their documents. The JTA president is calling for changes to the government's pension scheme for public school teachers to speed up payment for retired educators. She is suggesting a 90-day turnaround for all retired teachers to begin receiving their pension as long as all their documents have been submitted. The local government elections that were due in 7 days have been postponed for a third time until February 28, 2024. The announcement was made by the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Desmond McKenzie, in the House of Representatives Tuesday afternoon. The elections, which are constitutionally due every 4 years, were last held in November November 2016. They were due to be held in November 2020 but were postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Among other things, Desmond McKenzie, in piloting and opening the debate on the Representation of the People Act, cited that the country's economic recovery post-COVID, while good, was still fragile. He also said that consultations were still underway to make Portmore the country's 15th parish. The parliamentary opposition has stated that it will not support the latest postponement, with the Leader of Opposition Business in the House, Philip Paulwell, questioning the real reasons for the postponement. He asked if another postponement will be sought if the country's economic recovery is not where the government wants it to be in a year's time. Paulwell also cited that at least 15 divisions were without representation, some for as long as 4 years for various reasons, including the death of sitting councillors. He also argued that the government's indifferent treatment of local government was in part to blame for the poor voter turnout in elections, including general elections. In business news, Jamaica's economic growth is back to pre-pandemic levels and is projected to continue growing through 2023. Bank of Jamaica BOJ Governor Richard Biles says the country is expected to achieve 4 to 5% growth, driven primarily by tourism for the current fiscal year. However, there's an expectation of some slowing as the country's main trading partners return to normality. Meanwhile, the central bank head says the Jamaican dollar has held up quite well over the last year versus the benchmark U.S. currency. Also, the BOJ says a potential labor shortage heading into the next fiscal year could severely impact inflation. This, coupled with other factors, has forced the bank to adjust its cash reserve requirement in an attempt to maintain currency and inflation stability. In the region, Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is to donate $44.8 million to the Caribbean community, CARICOM. He says the funding will focus on initiatives such as biodiversity, climate resilience, and disaster preparedness and recovery to support CARICOM in addressing the climate crisis. Canada's initiatives include a $15 million fund for disaster management in the region and an $8 million allotment for the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund. There was also an allotment of $5 million to help Latin America and the Caribbean build their capacity for the adoption of nature-based climate solutions in order to increase their climate resilience and protect ecosystems. And on the international scene, a new 6.4 magnitude earthquake struck parts of Turkey and Syria on Monday, killing at least 8 people and leaving hundreds injured. The quake was centered in a town in Turkey, one of the worst hit regions in the magnitude 7.8 quake that hit on February 6. It was felt in Syria, Jordan, Israel, and as far away as Egypt, and was followed by a second one of a magnitude of 5.8. A number of buildings collapsed in the new quake, trapping people inside. The February 6 quake has killed nearly 45,000 people in both countries, the vast majority of them in Turkey. Turkish authorities say they have recorded more than 6,000 aftershocks since. The president of Turkey says his government will begin constructing close to 200,000 new homes in the quake-devastated region as early as next month. And finally, in sports, Jamaica's men's national senior football team will be back in action next month as they kick off what is expected to be a busy 2023. The Reggae Boys will engage Caribbean rivals Trinidad and Tobago in 2 international friendlies on March 11 and 14. The first of those 2 games will be played at the Montego Bay Sports Complex in Catherine Hall, while the second match will be at the National Stadium. The national youth and women's teams will also be kept busy this year. The revelations were made on Monday by the head coach at the official local reveal of the kits that form part of the 4-year deal with international sports goods manufacturer Adidas. And that's it for your news roundup for today. I am Abigail Smythe. Have a good evening and see you next time.
Teach them! Hey, yo, hello! Send the message and make it reach them. It's teach them. Right here, Warlord representing.
Thank you for watching. Like the video before you go. Please subscribe if you haven't done so. And remember to share the video with your friends and family. And browse the channel for more quality content. Until next time, walk good, my friends.
Teach them!